Hello, welcome to the 6th episode of Campfire Stories. Haha, woohoo! And our special guest this week is
each other.
Us. Yeah. Yeah. Justice and I, we love having guests. We've had some great guests, Justice. Oh my goodness.
We have from the community to the employee. I mean, it's been phenomenal. Couldn't be any of a better situation in terms of the first guests we've had.
Yeah, but it dawned on me that we haven't shared our story, and I love to talk, and I know you love to talk.
We all know I love to talk. Yep.
So that'd be fun for us to just chat a little bit with one another. Maybe tell the story of where the podcast came from, why we even do this, and went to Twitter, got some questions from some of the people in the community that we can answer as well. And a little cat told me that they were working on some special questions they were going to work on. Right, meow.
I just love saying that phrase. I don't know why. Anytime I get an opportunity to respond to anybody, it's always right meow or I'm coming right meow, whatever.
Oh my goodness, that cracks me up so much. I'm a cat person, and I hadn't even seen that movie until, I don't know, maybe 5 months ago.
That's hilarious. That's really funny.
It's so funny. So funny. So, Justice, why do you do this podcast?
Just tapping into I guess a little seriousness. When you first came to me, Stacey, with the idea, I think we had both been traveling down the path of, we both demonstrated an interest and an intrigue in hearing other people's stories in a manner that served as inspiration for us, and even going back to fellow community and Ohana members and just sharing the stories of others to people, whether it's Twitter DM or Twitter adding people within the Twitter ecosystem. I think this podcast is a platform to share stories verbally so people can kind of pick up on the tones of what people are excited about, what they're passionate about, and it just gives you a platform to share your story with many people that, not everyone gets to attend Dreamforce, not everyone gets to attend Trailhead X, but if we could share the stories of others in a way that everybody has access and availability, I think we can inspire more than just a few people we have come across physically at Dreamforce or community-led conferences. That's my take. Let me throw it right back at you, Stacey. Why do you do the podcast?
Yeah, because of the stories, because of the people. Because people need to share their stories and people need to hear the stories. One of the big takeaways for me last year, and I have to back up even further to 2016, when I had the opportunity to go to 4 or 5 different Salesforce events in the course of the year. And Justice, I live in a small town on the coast, and we are working on, but we don't have a very active local community. There just aren't a whole lot of people that do Salesforce, and so we've struggled with trying to do user groups and whatnot. They exist. They're small. But so in 2016, I went to multiple community events, and it was amazing. I got to speak at Midwest Dreamin' and, for Dreamforce.
And I went to Connections. Sitting right in the front when you were presenting, Pardot.
You did. Yeah. You did. That was when I met you for the first time. Yeah. You and Stu and several others.
Your squad.
And it was awesome. Went to Connections in Atlanta, which used to be the gathering for marketers, and they don't even do that anymore. But it was just amazing hanging out with people in the community. And then comes 2017, and the only community event that I went to was Dreamforce, which, as you know, wasn't until November. So I went for one full calendar year, actually just a little bit over, with no Salesforce community events in person. And obviously, I'm involved on Twitter and in the Trailblazer community, and Christy Guzman has come to visit a couple of times. And so I've had a couple of encounters here and there. I've spoken with a couple people on the phone and whatnot, but it's not the same as being at an event. And so when I got to Dreamforce, and you and I ended up spending a lot of time together, just because of schedules and whatnot, and I just got struck with this idea that I need more of this. And so I came back renewed and inspired from Dreamforce, that I'm more determined than ever to build an active community here in Wilmington. So whatever I can do to help with the local user group, and we've started Salesforce Saturdays once a month, and whatnot. And shout out to Bill Powell; he has been a phenomenal source helping me with that. But this podcast is part of that as well. That I need the community. I need to be connected. I need to hear the stories, and I want to help share the stories. So that was a really long answer to your question.
No, I gave
it's all
equally.
about the people.
Yeah, no, I gave an equally long answer. I think we're both aligned in terms of being passionate and just wanting to share stories, right? That's the name of the podcast.
Cool.
I
So
love it.
one of the things I love about your trailhead story, Justice, is that you know what the term Century Badger Club means.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know what that means now that are coming into the trailhead
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Yeah,
But
so
yeah,
explain, what is Century Badger Club for those who are listening that don't know?
yeah. So once upon a time, even a little bit before my time, there wasn't so many trailhead badges available. And in fact, there were less than 100 badges available. There might have been even have been a time where there were less than 50. That was probably before my time. But anyways, as people were going through Trailhead modules and acquiring badges, this was before the time of Trailheart and before the time of trail mixes. Obviously, those that are experienced with Trailhead, there's the concentration on the business user, the concentration on the administrator, and then the concentration on the developer. And then you can do beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So as you're acquiring Trailhead badges throughout those 6 categories, eventually you'll get to a point where you build up a momentum, and now you have 100 badges. And within the community, there had been this unofficial term of endearment or acknowledgement around being a century badger, meaning you had 100 badges or more within Trailhead. And it was, I don't know, it was a rite of passage for me, anyways, is what it felt like when I was able to acquire my 100th Trailhead badge and hashtag Century Badger. Now I'm in a group with Jen Lee, Teresa before she joined Salesforce, and all these great pioneers in the realm of Trailhead. But one of the things I wanted to say though is that although I was at 100 badges at the time, and other folks might not have been at that many badges. I think Trailhead, the intended purpose is to catalyze your learning experience. So I think there's been somewhat of a focus at times on the status associated with how many badges you have, and I think the narrative that I just want to bring back to it is, however many badges you have. Vala was telling us he had 7 badges, or roughly, but he was able to tell us in an earlier podcast what those badges were around. So those were badges that he had direct sentiment with, or um, you know felt that those badges were impactful in his learning experience. So whether you have 5 badges or you have 300 and however many badges Jen Lee has today, I think you're doing a phenomenal job. Just the fact that you're in Salesforce, you're learning Trailhead, or you're learning Salesforce via Trailhead, I get excited about that. So, but I am proud of my, I think now 150 some badges. So, and Stacey, you're there now. you recently joined the Century Badge Club.
So, Trailhead was a little bit different for me because I already knew Salesforce. I had been using it for a couple of years and had already earned a handful of certifications even before Trailhead came out. So I wasn't using Trailhead to learn what is CRM, what is Salesforce, but rather it's an ongoing tool for me when I need to learn about communities, when I built my first community, or it's been a while since I've done Service Cloud and I need to, get refamiliarized with a certain piece of it. Plus, the Salesforce platform is so huge, nobody knows everything. So it's always good to continue to expand. But so for me, that was Trailhead. I felt a little bit um, in good company when Cheryl said last week that she was the queen of unfinished trails, that she would jump into a module, do what she needed to do to learn, and then would, carry on. And I kind of feel like that sometimes. But back
By the way,
in,
I just want to say really quick, Cheryl, I appreciate you saying that because I literally am the king of that. So when she said that, Stacey, I'm thinking to myself, oh no, the Trailhead thing became public where you can use your vanity URLs and everyone's gonna see how many unfinished badges I have. But Cheryl made me feel vindicated, so I appreciate you, Cheryl.
right, right. It's not how many unfinished, it's what you've learned from it, right? And that what you were saying earlier.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
but I started this fall back in early October, started mentoring Yancey, and we've mentioned him a couple of times. And um, I have a little bit of a competitive side to me. And when he started completing badges that I didn't have, I was like, what? No, no, I can't have that. So then he surpassed me in rank, and yeah, so I worked to he became ranger before I did, but I was fast on his heels. So not
Well,
quite as
he
far as
is
you are.
Yancey Ranger. He is Yancey Ranger. So
Ranger Yancey, but
Ranger
yeah.
Yancey. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, just to rub it in when he created his Twitter profile, no, I don't think it was to rub it
Yeah,
into me. I think he was just proud of what he had done. But
aspirations. Yeah, good for him.
yeah. So I'm up to, I think, 120 now. He has long surpassed that and is still going. But it's been good for him starting out not knowing anything about Salesforce or CRM or any of that. But it's also been good for me to get refreshers or to learn new things along the way.
No, that's amazing. What's inspiring is the fact that you were able to through your journey get Yancey excited about Salesforce, and he just kind of immersed himself in the Trailhead. And
Mm-hmm.
he's now a ranger status, right? And that's trust me when I tell you
Mm-hmm.
that is not a easy achievement. It just isn't. It takes time. It takes dedication. Because you can rattle through uh, 300 badges, but if you don't have the corresponding points that reflect
Mm-hmm.
that you've gone through and actually done the quizzes and had optimal testing scores in alignment with the amount of badges, it's those two things that work in conjunction that
Mm-hmm.
provide you the. So anyway,
Right.
and he's been with Salesforce or working on Salesforce for a very short time frame. It's actually very impressive what he's been able
Mm-hmm.
to achieve in a short time window.
Yeah, yeah. And there's, all kinds of people like him out in the community that have used Trailhead to learn skills and then launch a new career, which is pretty exciting. But since his name came up, we did ask the Twitter community what kind of questions they would have for us. And Yancey was actually the first to respond. So he said, as mentors and super positive motivators, um, which, wow, what a compliment. So, as
Right.
mentors and super positive motivators in the Ohana, how do you keep that energy up? Meditation, workouts, or is there some other magic ingredient that keeps you working by day and motivating the Salesforce HANA in every other minute of your day?
I almost want to volley this one to you first because that was a very good question, multi-tiered, but okay, I'll take a stab.
Okay.
So I wake up every day and I read a daily devotional, and that daily devotional gives me insight, wisdom, and kind of puts me in a state of mind in which I can be subject to radical humility. So it's in that time that I acknowledge and realize where I was at, where I've come, and where I'm going. That allows me to. So throughout that process, Stacey, what ends up happening is I appreciate and I become grateful for the knowledge that I've acquired, the resources that I've obtained, and the network that I've established. From that, I, um, I'm able to say, okay, what can I do to now serve others? So, given the level of knowledge and experience that I've had within the Salesforce ecosystem, I feel that I can give back to others. And that gets me motivated and it gets me inspired when I see other people that are passionate about their careers or growing within a professional realm that are able to say, hey, Justice, what were some of the experiences or what are some of the insights you have specific to your experience in Salesforce that can help me throughout my journey? And from that, I get a lot of fulfillment. One of my passions and spiritual gifts, not to get too deep, but is to serve others. So I am at my best and I feel the most fulfilled when others are thriving and they're prosperous. And I've had, but a small impact in that process. So that keeps me motivated. I'm constantly trying to find ways to um, continue to give back to others. You know, whether it's on this podcast with you, Stacey, or it's within the Twitter community, or it's providing insights to Trifinity Lab, I believe is the name. Shane Rosad, a community member within Twitter, reaches out to various thought leaders within the Salesforce community to provide perspective on all things Salesforce. So I've been very humbled that I've had an opportunity to, with Eric Dredfield and other Salesforce MVPs, share insight there. So anywhere I can, LinkedIn, um, you know, I don't know everything, obviously. I'm not a part out expert. But the things that I am comfortable in, whether it's security, automated processes, governance, um, project deployments, project conceptualization, and understanding what strategies work to get your Salesforce implementation to a point of desired utilization and adoption, and all the components that enable that. I get excited about any of those conversations. So that's hopefully that answers your question, Yancey.
Yeah, and you're part of that Aspire to Inspire, right?
Yes. So that is, I'll give a small blurb. That is, it's funny, Stacey, because I was looking at an old YouTube video. Today I was thinking, let me go and look at my first YouTube video that I ever created when I started my channel. And the video I'm going to paraphrase, was entitled something to the effect of Speak, Share, Solicit. And within that, I was articulating my vision of what I hope to achieve in the coming months around speaking, sharing knowledge, and then soliciting feedback from others that could help me in building out this vision to inspire others. So fast forward to today, within the last week or so, I was able to launch a travel speaking panel entitled Aspire to Inspire, where we're traveling out to 5 local schools in the Minneapolis area and talking with the student body in a manner that, as minorities, we're able to demonstrate confidence and competence in how we speak non-verbally, but also verbally. And I've been sharing my journey, and obviously Salesforce and Trailhead are key components to what has built me into this perceived subject matter expert. So when I'm speaking with these students from socioeconomically challenged circumstances, they're
Mm-hmm.
able to perceive me as a success story, and I have Salesforce to thank for equipping me with the knowledge and the skill set that I could be perceived as such. And now it's upon me to inspire others that they can be subject matter experts and thought leaders in the realm of cloud based technology and the emerging capabilities coming um, from that realm. So I appreciate you calling that out. It's something I'm passionate about, and
Mm-hmm.
so PIC,
Yeah.
appreciate you.
I love it. I love it. Partner crime. It's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. So I would say my answer to the question would actually be very, very similar to yours. The church that I attend here in Wilmington, I'm part of the volunteer team, the Dream Team, as they call themselves, and we have a kind of a motto that says we get to give. Generosity isn't something that we believe that God wants from us, but rather something He wants for us, and I have
Mm,
found that to be very true, and not just in the content of volunteering at church, but serving in the community, beach cleanup and service projects and things going on, and then also helping out in the Salesforce community, and all of that is very, very true. But I'll also say, selfishly, yes, I am inspired by others, because things like this are contagious, and when you see somebody doing good, you want to do good also. And yes, I do it because someone helped me first, and so I want to pay it forward. And yes, I believe that I get to give, and that's a big motivator. But honestly, like I said when earlier, I need the community, and I need to do these podcasts and hear from people, and then share their stories. And I need to be chatting with people on Twitter and in the Trailblazer community and speaking at events and so forth, because it keeps me fueled. So Yancey's question was, where do you get the energy to do the stuff? And I think it's the other way around. It's doing the things is what gives me the energy.
I like that, and I like something you said specifically right there about you need the community, and I love that, and the need is being fueled by a desire to serve others, help others. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I was talking to somebody, and we had our Salesforce Saturday this past weekend, and somebody said, "Well, what do you do whenever people are commenting, 'Wow, you sure drank the Kool-Aid?'" And I said, "Well, I just answer them, 'The Kool-Aid's good. Why not drink it?'" It's
um,
good. Um, yeah. So the next question was actually from our friend Sophia, and oh, she's so
oh,
sweet.
she
I
had a
love
good
her.
question too. Actually, I can't remember what it was, but she had a really good question.
Yes. Yeah, she said, "What made you click as friends and teammates?" And then you
That's what it
shared that picture of you with blue hair and me with a blue hand.
Yep, yep.
So, yeah, what made us click as friends and teammates? And I would say for this, initially, the credit isn't even on you and I specifically, but it's the gift squad is where we really first connected.
Oh yeah, I would agree 100%.
And Amy Oplinger is how I became part of the gift squad. I think you were part of it, before I
Mhm,
was.
mhm.
But that's a cool little story and a great group that I kind of stumbled into. I feel really lucky to be part of that. Um, but yeah, I mean, what was it? We were hanging out. We were the only members of the gift squad in attendance at
Yeah.
Dreamforce that weren't MVPs. And so when during the keynote,
Salesforce
when
MVPs, if you're listening, this is a true story.
So when all of the gift squad MVPs went to their designated reserved area to do their, special MVP things, Justice and we were the RPs, the regular people. Uh, we, blazed our own trail and did our own thing. And honestly, Justice, I kept hanging around you because um, you were so inspiring. The way people stopped and they wanted to talk to you because of the blue hair, and you had, great stories to share, but you also had a way of getting stories and connection, and not connections in like an affluent way, but connecting um, from people. And so you really bring out the best in people that you're interacting with. And so you were inspiring for me to hang out with. And you needed a handler. You needed somebody to make sure you were going to get to your
You
sessions on
got to it before I could. Oh,
So
that's
okay, go ahead.
hilarious.
Go ahead. Tell on me. Oh.
So yeah, so okay, I call Stacy guys my PIC, partner in crime, for those who don't know. But Stacy nailed it on the head. So I want to do a couple things here. So yeah, we first met in the Gift Squad. But for those that have heard of the Gift Squad or hear some rumblings in terms of us conversing on Twitter or when the Gift Squad of the Week is coming out, highlighting a member of the Salesforce community, uh, I just wanted to be very clear. The Gift Squad came together, and this is a group of individuals that truly, truly all have an aligned passion and appreciation for Salesforce and growing in the space of Salesforce. And together, I mean, the term is somewhat facetious, but we're constantly in the group. Ben just shared earlier today. We're constantly in the group collaborating, asking questions in terms of how we could be better at whatever challenges or barriers that we're faced with within our day to day in terms of Salesforce functionality. But in the same breath, we're encouraging each other, we're uplifting each other, both personally and professionally, so that we can all be the best versions of ourselves. And we're completely supportive of each other. And I think from that, subsequently, a lot of additional relationships have been formed. So obviously, me and Stacy, we come together as a group whenever we go to community led conferences, and those of us that are represented at those conferences, we tend to try to stick together and see who's going where, who's doing what. Obviously, at times we get separated. To Stacy's point, like if at this time, all the MVPs within the Gift Squad went and did their engagements. Stacy and I got to get much closer. And yeah, usually when I go to Dreamforce or I go to some of these conferences, I'm kind of the social networker. So I'm connecting with people, I'm talking. And this was an opportunity where Stacy and I were coexisting for several days. So I kind of got to see how she perceives Dreamforce and goes about engaging and interacting with people, and she was able to do the same with me. But the whole handler comment is, I'm just going to be transparent with you guys. I'm very bad at timing. I'm very bad at time management. And that can be a whole nother conversation for another day. But uh, you know, there are people that have planned to say, Justice, we're going to be here at this time, and they would literally say, Justice, you need to be here at 5 o'clock. Really, the event didn't start till 7, but that was their way of getting me there in advance. But Stacy somehow has picked up on this on an accelerated timetable. And whenever we needed to go somewhere to go support a fellow Gift Squad or Salesforce Ohana at a speaking engagement like Bill Powell's, Stacy would be the one that would be saying, "Okay, we got to go. We can't be having 65-minute impromptu conversations on the way there." So, anyways, she kind of does the same thing with this podcast, and you know, we're not all perfect at everything, guys. But anyways, I'm grateful for the friendship and relationship I have with Stacy, and from that, I think Stacy talked a little bit about needing the community. For me, it's in the theme of that conversation. What I need is relationships of value, ones that
Mhm.
demonstrate a vested interest in the good and even the challenging times that we travel through in life. So to answer your question, what brings Stacey and I together is, I think, a mutual admiration to serve others. We both appreciate what we've both accomplished respectively. And then, we're both very passionate about wanting to share stories. And that just has brought us together over the course of the
Mm-hmm.
last several months.
Yeah.
Great
And so
question.
if
Wow.
anybody has any time management tips, tricks, hacks, you can reach him at on Twitter at Justice Sikikane.
That's too funny.
I'm teasing. You know I love you,
Yeah, I know,
Justice.
I know. But I am bad at time management, guys. This is true.
And the
Um,
funny thing is, if you ask my best friend, she would tell you that's typically me, but me keeping you on track helped me stay on track.
yeah, it's funny how that works out, right?
Yeah. So we're good for each other.
Yeah, I love
We're a
it.
good team. We're a good team. And so then the idea of the podcast started to form on the heels of Dreamforce, and I knew that I didn't want, nor would it be as good if I did this podcast alone. I knew I needed a partner in crime, um, and I knew you were the right person because of how you engage with people, because of how we help bring out the best in one another. And because I enjoy talking with you.
Yeah, no, it's mutual.
So it just made sense.
It's funny too because not that long ago, I had and Dana Hall kind of shared with us how she felt too because she's trying to start up a podcast. But uh, I had tried kicking off a podcast. I didn't take any real action. It was more ideation than anything. Um, Several months ago, a year ago, and for me, it's something I'm passionate about. But to your point, Stacey, it wasn't something I wanted to do alone, and it needed to be somebody that I could partner and truly mesh with. And
Mhm.
if we wanted to, we could be on this podcast talking, for an hour, 2 hours. But the point is the universe came together and it just worked out. It was destined.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. All
RPs, I
right, we
love it.
got.
So any of you out there that want to utilize that term, it is a Stacy founded term that I have co-signed. I love it. We will get together. We
Yeah.
will link up. Yeah. Anyways.
You're so funny. Okay, so one final community fed question. This is from Jessica, and this is for I guess, the inner sci-fi nerd in us. If you could get in the TARDIS and go back in time and talk to your newbie Salesforce self, what advice would you give? I think this is a great question. I love to reflect back from time to time, but also you and I both in the past 6 months or so have spoken at Salesforce events about our journey. So we've both recently spent some time doing just this, looking back.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So, yeah, so I'll let you go first. I've heard the recording of you at the was it the Lightning
Oh,
Tour?
the Trailhead Live.
Yeah, Trailhead
Yeah.
Live. Thank you, thank you. So, so I have heard your full presentation. So, keeping it under an hour. If to answer this question, what would you go back and tell your newbie Salesforce self?
Yeah, I think, I'm a very ambitious person, and sometimes that's typically perceived as a good thing, but sometimes can be, I don't want to say damning, but it can push things out of perspective in a manner that you don't demonstrate patience. And I would say what I would tell my newbie self is, be patient, take your time, and just respect the process because for me, learning Salesforce, initially when it was first presented to me, I kind of treated it as what's this tool I've never heard of? It was kind of the millennial in me wanted to take on the new challenge, but at the same time, I wasn't going to be the perceived subject matter expert because this is a new technology, a new concept, in terms of cloud-based, software as a service, and it was just different for me. And but I was excited to take it on because I mean, Salesforce is a very appealing tool, even right out the gate. But what I would tell myself is to just be patient. Obviously now when I look back, co-hosting a podcast with you, Stacey, speaking at Dreamforce, speaking at Midwest Dreaming, founding a speaking panel in which I could share my experiences within the Salesforce ecosystem, and even speaking at Trailhead Live and giving my from accidental admin to awesome admin or to trailblazer with Trailhead. These are all experiences that came about based on the experiences I had acquired through working with Salesforce and the tool and the challenges and the barriers and the success factors. So just demonstrating a little bit more patience, and just, enjoy the ride because, today you'll be logging into Salesforce for the first time and creating what is going to be referred to you as an app. And, you just kind of sitting there and thinking to yourself, hey, I thought creating an app was like creating an iOS app. Well, no, in Salesforce, it's a little bit different. But that app obviously is going to serve the purpose of driving business processes. And from that, a year from then or 2 years from then, you'll be co-hosting a podcast and you'll be inspiring others. So in order to get to that point of inspiration, you're going to need to demonstrate patience and humility. So not be as ambitious, just, respect the process, like I said. How about you?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that I would say. I think getting certified was a big step because it forced me to really learn the system. I kind of stumbled into Salesforce as it stumbled into being an admin. And so I was self-taught for a while. And there were so many things that I just kind of figured out and clicked around till I found, or, well, this seems like it works, so I'll just go with it. Did a Google search or whatever. And, but when I got certified and more than certified, but when I started to actually understand the architecture of the system, that was a big deal. That was a game changer. When I started to understand the long-term effects of even minor changes in my Salesforce org, and therefore the importance of a center of excellence or a change management steering committee, that was a game changer. There have been many things like that along the way. But honestly, the biggest game changer for my Salesforce career was simply getting connected to the community, because it was from that step of connecting in the community that I learned about the certifications and found the resources to study and get certified. It was from the community that I found people who introduced me to the, Center of Excellence ideas. And it was from there that I heard about the Button Click Admin podcast, where I heard advice on how to be a business analyst and have ownership of my org and ask the whys. And then, of course, from there, speaking opportunities and the idea that Stephanie Guerrera, started Salesforce Saturdays and everything else that I've done has all. Thank you. So, but everything else that I've done has been a result of, first and foremost, stop being in a silo and get connected. And so if I had to go back in time, I would not wait those first couple of years. I would get connected immediately.
Yeah, there are two things you said. One of which I want to highlight on for myself. I don't know how I missed this, but Trailhead is unbelievably important, and I wish I would have started that much earlier. I can only imagine how much further I would be right now if I took the opportunity to start immersing myself in Trailhead. There's just been too many conversations I've been a part of, strategy sessions where concepts like two-factor authentication, process
Mm-hmm.
builder that were discussed that I had just recently learned in a Trailhead module maybe a day prior, and I was equipped
Mm.
to objectively tackle that conversation in a manner in which I led the conversation, and it was based on the knowledge that I acquired maybe a day or two prior in a Trailhead module,
Wow.
and now I'm this perceived uh, leader. I'll never forget the moment. This was a two-factor authentication related conversation. I was in a meeting, and that concept came up, and nobody else on the call really knew what it was. Stacey, I was racing to hit unmute on my thing so I could come in and share all my knowledge that I acquired from Trailhead. And then if it was asked, obviously, well, Justice, how do you know all of that? Boom, done, Trailhead, right? So, and then
Mm-hmm.
the community, not even the community for me, I think it's been called out numerous times by many people, but the community truly, I want to circle back to your comment about drinking from the Kool-Aid. The community for me is family. It sounds very cliche and very Justice drink from the Kool-Aid, but I'm texting with you. I'm texting with Ben. I'm texting with a lot of people within the Salesforce community that are genuinely wanting to know how I'm doing. I'm wanting to know how they're doing, how their kids are doing. And that's just genuine. And obviously, we all have a shared passion and reach out to each other. Ben was making YouTube videos for me early on in my career when I was struggling with certain things in Salesforce. And me being me, I asked 20,000 questions. So Ben just went ahead one time. Ben Balapi, by the way, for those listeners, created a private YouTube video, explained to me what I was running into barriers with, and then shared that. To this day, I think back to myself, what sort of care does somebody need to have for somebody else to go out of their way to do all of that work and effort in service of another? So it's family, the community,
Mm-hmm.
and I love it. I love it. So
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate you
Mm-hmm.
saying those two things because that made me think more deeper on my end.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think another piece of advice that I would give, and it's not necessarily something to do, but it's just something to be aware of, is the community is awesome. Trailhead is fantastic. Certifications are great, but at some point you also have to kind of come to terms with the fact that you'll never know everything about the system. Like it's good to have an somewhat understanding of the width of the platform, but you can't have full depth of knowledge in every single area of all of the clouds. There's just too much, and it's always some 3 releases a year, so there's always more coming out. Um, so you have to kind of come to terms with that. You'll never know everything, but own what you do know. And I love, and I know I've mentioned Amy already in this episode a couple of times, but we were actually texting right before this call also. But she has spoken at several events, and then she started a group in the Trailblazer community just for people struggling with imposter syndrome. and
Mm,
and honestly, I think that's something that almost everybody struggles with at some point to some degree. That you sit in a room and you go, uh, everybody's an expert but me, and I'm faking it. And what happens when they find out that I'm not this? They're proclaiming me an subject matter expert, and I know a little bit, but what happens if I fail? So I think that would be um, good for everybody to understand, is accept that you don't know everything, but also accept that you do know what you know. You know what I mean?
yeah, you just have to find. I think 2 years ago, Dana Hall, Chris Landy, they interviewed me for this awesome admin story that's on Salesforce's website. And I was quoted for saying something of, just be comfortable with what you know and what you don't know, right? I have no problem being, in terms of raw technical grit or raw technical understanding of the functionality, its core functionalities of the Salesforce platform. I have no problem being the one in the room that doesn't know as much as my colleagues, because the reality is I understand the tool, I understand its enablement capabilities, I understand its functionality to a point in which I can support its utilization and can even make recommendations to enhance the adoption of the tool. And obviously, I understand the key components that make Salesforce from a Sales Cloud CRM perspective. But the reality is even in that realm, I don't know everything. So I love, to be honest with you, being able to go out to a broader community and say, hey, I'm trying to write out this validation rule to do exactly this, and I keep running into this wall. And then to hear multiple perspectives and different avenues travel down of, well, have you tried this? Did you look at that? Did you look at this? And that to me is just inspiring, because as one, we might not know everything, but as a group, there isn't any problem we couldn't tackle, right? So, and that's how I feel, for me, the Trailblazer community is phenomenal, and it's been in place for a while. If you're looking for something a bit more instantaneous and immediate, not to say that the Trailblazer community isn't, but based on whatever platform works best for you is what I would suggest. For me, Twitter works phenomenal. I can just go into the Gift Squad chat, or I could tweet out something, and have an abundance of responses that will allow me to travel down a path of being closer to a resolution with whatever the problem is that I was dealing with within the tool. And that's what the community is about. Everyone wants to help. No one's asking for compensation. And in fact, somebody tweeted at me the other day and said, "Do you get paid when you speak at Dreamforce?" And I responded back, and I love having the opportunity to respond back and say what I said, which was, Dreamforce and all these other community-led conferences that were birthed from Dreamforce and those who couldn't attend, all the speakers there aren't getting paid, because the whole intention or goal, at least as how I perceive it, is Salesforce has created this tool and this platform. They've empowered their customers and their partners. And now those customers and partners that have become advocates and sponsor of that tool now have a platform to share back with other potential customers on the amazing experiences, learning experiences that they've acquired, in a way that will kind of create this organic, growing, inspiring consumer base for Salesforce, right? They're not about. I think Salesforce, from my perception, does phenomenal in organic growth because they utilize the community to empower their platform. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. And I mean, you could say you get paid with, appreciation, with love, with respect. You look at people in the community like Steve Moe, consistently in the top leaderboard in the Answers community, speaking not only at Dreamforce, but like multiple times at Dreamforce. Like you can raise the bat signal, and Steve is there and he's going to answer your questions. Now, I mean, you may owe him a beer afterwards, but but yeah, I mean, that's payment enough, is knowing that you've helped someone. Absolutely, you're right.
Yeah, and he just did something recently, to your point about the bat signal. He just did something recently. He gave a virtual training or teaching class in India. And I watched the whole thing transpire from Steve Moe getting tweeted at and saying, "Hey, I can't recall who the individual was. I can't recall, but we'd love to see you teach a class here in India around this is the theme." Steve kind of saying, "Oh yeah, I would be open to that. Sounds exciting. Just align with my availability given the different time zones." all the way to putting out a date and then scheduling it and then Steve delivering. The whole thing transpired on Twitter. It was unbelievable,
Hmm.
right? And to your point, Steve kind of has that growing demand of, on his LinkedIn, it says he's the fixer of shit, which I find entertaining. But I mean, the reality is he does fix stuff, and he consistently, to your point, um, that's verifiable on the Answers community week in and week out. So you
Hmm.
know,
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Justice, I don't know if you have any questions on your end.
yeah, I might have one question. It wasn't necessarily planned for, but my question to Stacey, that folks may be interested in is, what is the next big thing for Stacey?
That's so funny. My one last question I was going to end with is, what's next for you?
Oh no. See, and this is why, guys, we are PICs, because we think alike. This wasn't premeditated, it wasn't planned. Love it.
That's awesome. So what's next for me is in about a week, I will be at Southeast Dreamin'. And so my first community event of 2018, I'm super excited to go. So I guess that's my next thing. And I can't stop talking and thinking and planning for uh, future Salesforce Saturdays. We've got one, we just had our March event. We meet once a month. April, we're going to do a highlight the nonprofit, the NPSP, and I've been reaching out to. There's a handful of nonprofits here in Wilmington that use Salesforce, so trying to reach out to them and encourage them to attend the Salesforce Saturday, and then hopefully they'll also be able to make good connections with other Salesforce people to help them continue to expand and tap into more of what Salesforce offers. And then I'm super excited. I've made connections with a Salesforce employee who's a director in the marketing department. And so he and I are in talks about having him come and speak at our May event. So this has been just a labor of love that it took a little bit to kind of get off the ground. We had a couple of gatherings where it was just me and one other, and it's finally starting to get a little bit of traction, and again the community for helping to spread the word and give me tips on how to do it better. But so that's what I'm looking forward to, is continuing to build the local community and then traveling to Atlanta for a regional event. How
Wow.
about
You,
you?
you have a packed calendar up here coming up. Good for you.
Yes, yes. And I guess we can go ahead and spill the beans. Our next
Oh, I'm excited.
podcast guest will be our first international guest. So super super excited about that. So love seeing the responses that we get every week, tweets, private messages, and so forth from people who are appreciating, responding to, being inspired by what they're hearing on the podcast. And that's, man, that's humbling for sure.
So my quick 10-second commercial ad before I go into my responses. If you are listening to this podcast and you sat through this for 55 minutes with Stacey and I would like for you to pause right now, go out to Twitter, look for at SF Campfire, and if you're not following, go ahead and follow, and then come back
Mm-hmm.
to the podcast while I go ahead and answer. So that was my plug and the reason why I do that, somewhat jokingly, but I'm going to be serious now, is that we created this Twitter handle based on a suggestion Eric Dreshfield gave to us. So thanks, Eric. And within a short time window, Stacey, I mean, we're over 100 followers, and it's Wow, I guess I don't know what to say. Yeah, I love it, and it's growing, right? So it's I look forward to seeing how much further the podcast will continue to grow as we continue to share these stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So what's
So
next
my
then?
what next is I have two primary things on the calendar that are scheduled that I'm looking forward to, and there are two speaking engagements. So on March 28th, as a part of my Aspire to Inspire traveling speaking panel, we'll be speaking at Best Academy in Minneapolis, Minnesota, to seventh and eighth graders with my fellow panelists. This panel is going to be 45 minutes of speaking with these students and sharing our unique and distinct stories in a manner that inspires these students. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth as to my journey within Salesforce and Trailhead in a way that's created opportunities for me to travel down this path of self-actualization, which by definition is just achieving one's full potential. So looking forward to that. And then a week later, I'll
Mm-hmm.
be traveling to Chicago and I'll be speaking at Conga Connect 2018 as a keynote
Wow.
panelist speaker. So I'm looking forward to that. This is my first conference, Stacey. I've traveled to several conferences in the last several months, but this is the first conference where I'm blessed to be in a situation where my lodging and traveling expenses and things of that nature are being taken care of, just for me to be able to speak and share my perspective. So it makes me feel like the passion and the growth I've been going down in terms of being able to share with others in a manner that um, is I guess conducive for how I communicate. It's just
Mm-hmm.
been a blessing. So I'm looking forward to that. And then the next biggest thing for me in 2018 will be I have a goal of being able to deliver my first ever TEDx. So
Mm-hmm.
that's on the radar. So stay tuned. I'm looking
Wow.
forward to that
That's
becoming a reality.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow, that's fantastic. I'm excited to hear more about all of those and phenomenal. Wow.
I wonder really quick if you're in Southeast Dreaming, that's next week or 2 weeks.
That's next week.
So I wonder if we could do like a podcast interview out there while you're out there.
Mm.
So
Mm.
Tony Prophet, if you're listening, I would love for you to connect with Stacy so we can get you on an episode, or anybody out there for that matter. Jean Villeneuve, I know she's going to be out there and she's excited. I think Shauna Hughes is going to be out there. But yeah, if there, I don't know how, I've seen like Brian Kwong and these guys do like traveling podcast interviews. But if an opportunity exists, that would be cool and amazing. So if you're at Southeast Dreaming and you have some sort of desire or life goal to be interviewed on the Salesforce Campfire Stories, please reach out to Stacy. She will be representing 50% of the PIC relationship between her and I, and we will figure something out. So DM the Twitter handles SF Campfire or DM Stacy or myself for that matter, and we can figure something
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, Justice, this was fun. Who knew that you and I could talk for an
out
hour
officially.
without a
This is the
special
longest
guest?
episode. Wow, no surprise.
Oh, they just keep getting longer
I
and longer,
know,
don't
I
they?
know. Sorry, Mark. You got to break the record now.
Yeah. Well, and now you just gave away who next week is.
Oh no, no. You know what? We'll edit that out. We'll edit that out. We'll edit that out. Yeah.
Okay,
Didn't
okay.
even think about that.
All right. Or that could be a test to who made it all the way through to the
Right,
end.
exactly.
Okay. Anyway, this has been a lot of fun. Justice, I always love hearing from you and sharing with you, hearing your what inspires you, what keeps you going, and
and you make me laugh. So I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, I did too, and obviously the respect is mutual. Likewise, so get being able to chat with you in general is always a treat. But being able to chat with you while other people can hear kind of our humorous ways of interacting with each other is even more of a treat. So this is always a treat for me.
Excellent. All right. Well, this has been fun. Thanks, you guys, for listening, and we will see you next week around the campfire.
See you guys later.